The morning light filtered through the tall windows of the courthouse, casting long and solemn shadows across the polished wooden benches. It was a place where stories often met their resolution, and today the air was thick with the weight of unresolved emotions. Case number 3061, Maravilla versus Maravilla, was about to begin. This was the courtroom of Judge Judy Justice, a woman known for her sharp wit and her unwavering commitment to the truth. As the bailiff called the court to order, everyone rose in unison. The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of the judge taking her seat, her eyes scanning the two individuals standing before her. Alejandro Maravilla and Ana Maravilla had once shared a life and a home, but now they stood on opposite sides of a legal divide. Between them lay the remains of a marriage and the shared responsibility of a child who was only 3 years old, nearly 4. The primary custody belonged to Ana, a point that Alejandro did not dispute. However, the heart of the matter today was not just about time spent with their son, but about the friction that occurred during their exchanges. Alejandro was suing his former wife for vandalism and assault, claiming that her actions were not only harmful to him but traumatic for their small boy. The judge began by addressing the history of their separation. Alejandro explained that it had taken a considerable amount of effort to enforce his visitation rights. During the very first weekend that he was supposed to take his son home, a conflict erupted that left a permanent mark on his car and his memory. He had arrived at Anna's home 5 minutes early, feeling a mixture of sadness and excitement. He had missed his son and wanted to start the weekend on a positive note. Anna, however, felt a different kind of sadness. She wanted one last hug, one last moment before the separation began. When the boy was already buckled into his car seat, Ana had insisted on taking him out again. She claimed the child was crying, but Alejandro remembered it differently. He felt that her reaction was creating an atmosphere of hysteria that a 3-year-old child should never have to witness. The judge leaned forward, her voice firm as she reminded them both that such displays of emotion are deeply traumatic for a child. A child needs to feel that moving between parents is a natural and safe transition, not a source of conflict. As the story unfolded, Alejandro described the moment he heard a loud, scraping sound. He had allowed Ana to take the boy out of the car for 5 minutes, and in that brief window, he saw a large scratch appear on the side of his vehicle. He believed she had keyed the car in a moment of frustration. Ana denied it, claiming she was intimidated by the presence of the police and the 20 officers who seemed to surround her. She admitted to the officers that she might have accidentally scratched the door, promising to pay for the damage just to end the confrontation. But in court, she argued that her promise was born of fear, not of guilt. The evidence, however, was captured on video. Frame by frame, the judge examined the footage. There was a hand on the car, a movement that matched the location of the scratch. The judge looked at the police report, which clearly stated that Ana had admitted to the possibility of the accident. It was a lesson in accountability. Whether intentional or accidental, the damage was done, and the responsibility to repair it remained. The tension escalated as they discussed a second incident involving an assault. This occurred during another pickup at Alejandro's house. He had tried to maintain his distance, but Ana had crossed the street to confront him. The source of her anger was a support check. Alejandro had written the check using her maiden name, Sanchez, instead of her married name. To Ana, this felt like an insult, a way of erasing her identity before the divorce was even final. Alejandro, sensing the rising aggression, began to record the interaction on his phone. In response, Ana had reached out to grab the device, resulting in scratches on Alejandro's neck. The judge watched the recording of this second encounter. She saw the check in the hand, the quick movements, and the escalation of tempers. She spoke directly to Ana, her voice carrying the weight of experience. She explained that no matter how insulted or frustrated a person feels, they have no right to put their hands on another person. Physical aggression is never the answer, especially when a child is watching. It was a moment of profound education, a reminder that we must love our children more than we hate our former partners. The judge moved to the counterclaim filed by Ana, who alleged that Alejandro had filed a false restraining order against her. She felt like a victim, trapped in a cycle of litigation and debt. She mentioned that Alejandro had not paid child support or for the babysitter for almost a year, but the judge looked through the noise of the arguments. She saw two people who were hurting and taking that pain out on each other in ways that were ultimately destructive. She dismissed the counterclaim, finding that the evidence supported Alejandro's claims of damage and assault. She awarded a judgment of $2,500 to the plaintiff. As the mayor of Villas left the courtroom, Alejandro expressed a hope for the future. He wanted to maintain a good relationship for the sake of their son. He hoped that through this process, Anna would see the importance of moving on and finding a way to co-parent with respect. It was a call for healing, a wish for a better tomorrow for a small boy who deserved peace. The court then turned its attention to case number 3055, Mello versus Pilgrim. This case was different in nature, yet it carried a similar theme of misdirected emotion. Joy Mello was suing her former attorney, Larry Pilgrim, for the costs of a suit her son had worn during a high-profile trial. Joy was a mother who had worked 3 jobs to pay for her son's legal defense. Her son had been convicted of a serious crime and was now serving a life sentence. The suit in question had cost $700. It was civilian clothing that Joy had purchased so that her son would not have to appear in court in a prison jumpsuit. She claimed that she had given the clothes to Mr. Pilgrim with the understanding that they would be returned to her once the trial was over. However, the clothes had vanished. Mr. Pilgrim explained that once a prisoner is convicted and taken from the courtroom, their clothing often goes into a general pool for other defendants or is handled by the sheriff's department. He did not have the suit and did not know where it had gone. Judge Judy looked at Joy with a sense of deep empathy. She recognized the sadness that radiated from the mother, a woman who had lost her son to the justice system. But she also saw that Joy's anger was directed at the wrong target. The attorney was not responsible for the lost clothing. He had acted as a conduit, but he was not the custodian of the son's personal property after the verdict was read. The judge read a letter from the trial judge, which stated that the clothing had been returned to a central coordinator. Joy had followed up, but the trail had gone cold. The judge gently explained that in the grand scheme of a 50-year sentence, a $700 suit was a small thing to hold on to. She suggested that Joy was clinging to the suit as a way of clinging to her son, and that her legal battle against the attorney was a way of processing a grief that was too large to carry. The lesson was clear. Anger is often an easier emotion to handle than profound sadness. When we lose someone or something we love, we look for someone to blame, someone to hold accountable for our pain. But true healing comes from placing that energy where it belongs. The judge dismissed the case, urging Joy to find a way to let go of the anger and focus on her remaining 4 children and the life she still had to live. As the court adjourned for the day, the echoes of these stories lingered. They were stories of people trying to navigate the complexities of life, love, and loss. They were reminders that our actions have consequences, that boundaries must be respected, and that the best advice often comes from the simple principle of never putting your hands on another person. In the end, the courtroom was a place of law, but it was also a place where the human spirit was encouraged to find its way back to kindness and understanding. The sun continued to shine through the windows, a bright promise of the clarity that comes when the truth is finally told and the heart is ready to move forward.